Okay, good evening. Welcome to the city meeting. It's 6 o'clock. We're going to get the meeting started. If we'd like to stand up real quick. And Gabby, you want to lead us in a quick invocation? And then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please. No, take your time. Take your time.
Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for having another blessing day. Thank you for all the blessings that you give us. Please keep us in your prayers. Make us do the best decision for the best of our community, for our city. And please don't leave us aside, making us have good health and blessings for our families and a complete city. In your name we pray. Amen.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do you have any visitors' comments today? Thank you. We have a total of 10 consent agenda items. 11, I'm sorry. Is there any that the council would like to set aside? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion made.
I second the motion.
And motion has been seconded by Commissioner Vincent. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. At this time, we'll be moving on to our action items. Action item number 1 reads, consideration and action to approve the final design plan and authorize to advertise invitations to bid for the CDV 23-0338 street improvement project funded by the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Relief Recovery Program, CDBG-DR, administered by the Texas Department of Agriculture, TDA, and take appropriate action. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is another round of grant funding that's available. We got approved for $500,000, which is the max. We put in $50,000 in order to get that. Of that, $75,000 goes to engineering, $34,800 goes to grant administration. So we have $440,200 available for construction. The streets that we had picked is West Ninth Street. If you've been on West Ninth Street lately, it's pretty rough, all the way from Mesquite all the way to Olmo, very much needed. And then there's one block, 7th Street from Palma to Fresno Street. And then one block from 5th Street from Mesquite to Palma. That's all in the west quadrant, southwest quadrant of town. Very much needed. As you can see, the estimate is, without the contingency, is a little over $600,000, $601,245. We knew that it probably would be a little over, but we would rather be over than under. We set aside monies and budget in order to handle it if we need to. We would have to come up, and if it comes up to their estimate is about $161,000. If it's over, which there could be some contingencies up to about $220,000, but like I said, we set the money aside. The streets really need to be done. And so this is getting us started. Getting us to be able to go to request bids. And I'll take any questions if there is.
Any questions from the board at this time? Or if not, if there's an action?
The only question I got, Mark, is says to replace the manholes or remove the manholes. They're charging $9,750 for each manhole, or?
Yeah, it's a pre-made, precast. Goes pretty deep in, depending on how big they are. It goes deep into the ground, and so yes, it's It's pretty
The whole-
expensive.
Okay, so we don't have manholes there, or we just gonna take them out and replace them with new ones?
Being replaced. Remember the old ones are the old brick that most of them are deteriorated and some not even there anymore. So you get a lot of infiltration into our system when it rains. So yeah, they're expensive because they're so deep. And usually you hit the water table, so they'll have to do dewatering, which means they put pumps down there and have to pump it off for several days, even up to a week, depending on the depth, in order for it to be dry and not wet there.
Okay, Mark, thanks. That's the question that I have, because I saw it and I said, where is it? All right, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Commissioner or Councilman. Is any other questions from the board? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
I make a motion that we consider an action to approve the final design plan and authorization to advise the invitation to bid for the CDV 2338 Street Improvement Project, funding the Community Development Black Grant Disaster Recovery Program, CDBG DR, administered by the Texas Department of Agriculture, TDA, and take appropriate action.
Thank you very much. Motion made.
I'll second.
And motion has been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Consideration and action to approve a change order number 3 for the 2021 Street, Sidewalk, and Sewer Improvement Project. Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, this is to kind of finish up that project. The work is all done. What this does is takes care of all of the quantities because the bid's done on estimated that there'll be this many manholes, this many feet of pipe and all of that. We actually go out and measure all of that as they're doing it. So this takes care of all those quantities, plus or minus. And as you can see, it's good for us. It's we've had more minuses than pluses, and so we get a credit of $8,833.90. So very good job. I give kudos to Hanson Professional Services. Rick Riggins, of course, is in the field, but Paulina and Iris in the office looking over the paperwork and have done a real excellent job. And so you see those credits and a few increases that we, when we get in the field, end up having to do, and that's on page 51. So, of course, for a credit, we're recommending approval.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions or comments from the board? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
Are all the sidewalks at the same diameter, I mean, the same size and everything? That the ones that we have, or they're being more wider than the ones that we have?
The sidewalk on South Alamo Street, we didn't have to do. It was, we thought it was, there was going to be connecting because it's right, not really on, it's the connection of 8th Street that we thought it would have to do, and I'm sorry, 8th Street and also 6th Street, but they didn't have to do that connection. It was already done. So with the paving that we did on the other street, so that one particular one was on Alamo, and so they thought we would have to do some connectivity that didn't have to be done.
Okay, that's the question I had, Mark. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any other questions from the council? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
I'll make a motion to approve the change order number 3 for the 2021st Street Sidewalk and Sewer Improvement Projects.
Motion made?
Second.
And motion has been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Consideration and action to approve the Los Fresnos Police Department 2024 Racial Profiling Report. Mark or Chief, whoever would like to come up and say some words.
I'll start, and Chief's available for any questions. You might as well come on up. 54 just talks about the total traffic stops, 12,657. Then it breaks it down by male and female, 38.8% female, 61% male. The next page on 55 talks about whether they're moving violations or vehicle traffic violation or exactly what they were. So most of them are moving violations. Then bottom of 55, you can see there was search conducted, no, on 98.33% of the stops. Page 56, was there a probable cause to search? Yes, 126 of them, or 1%. And then incident to arrest, in other words, they searched and then ended up making arrests. There's only 39 of them, less than 1%, so very few. Then was there contraband discovered? Yes. Out of those that there were only 1.26%, so very, even though we do find stuff, there's very negligible. I think it's on page 58, it's interesting. Written warnings, about a third of the traffic stops were written warnings, 33.2%, so pretty good number. I think officers use very good discretion on when to issue a citation and when to not, so I think that's good to note for you as you talk to people. Arrests under page 59, number 12, arrests based on violation of Penal Code, 92 of them. Outstanding warrants, when they stop them, they might find an outstanding warrant, 61 of those. So sometimes they have an outstanding warrant either in our community or a neighboring community. Page 60, another thing that I think is good for y'all to know was physical force used? No on 99.95% of the time, so very infrequent. So you can see that our officers are well trained in being able to handle situations. Only 6 of them, in fact, yes, had to use physical force, and so I think that's a good thing to know for y'all as you talk to people, and that's really all the report. It gets into a lot more detail, but you can read that on your own, or I'd be glad to answer questions, or Chief can answer questions.
Does any of the board have any questions about the statistics that are in front of us?
The only question I have, Chief, is I know you guys are doing a great job. Thank you for working for Los Fresnos. My question is, on these officers, do they have some kind of training to how to approach an individual when they stop them and stuff like that, or it's just of whatever the training they go through on schooling?
They're trained how to approach. There's a certain steps that the officers during the approach that they do. So, like, one is they put their hand behind the trunk of the vehicle in case something happens. Fingerprints are there. So there's several steps that we go through.
Okay, that's the question I had, Chief. Thank you very much, and again,
Thank you.
we're very grateful. You guys are doing a great job, and thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board in regards to any of the statistics that were mentioned here today? If not, if there's a motion to be made.
I'll make a motion to approve the Los Fresnos Police Department 2024 racial profiling report.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor, who seconded? It was, okay, Albert. Okay. Motion is made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
And all those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. Thank you, Chief. Okay, at this time, next up, we have consideration and action to appoint a member to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I know that this one was discussed to me by the chairman of the Planning and Zoning, and he mentioned how important it was for a particular member to be back on the planning and zoning, and I believe that member is Mr. Seattle that's here today. And at this time, if there's no questions or comments, I'd go ahead and like to make the motion to nominate Mr. Seattle back into the Planning and Zoning Committee.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
What was the?
He's gonna be back on planning
Okay,
and zoning.
okay, thank you. Aye.
So motion made. Okay, and all those that oppose do the same. Motion carries. Welcome aboard. Moving on to action item number 5, discussion and review of annexation, de-annexation, disannexation, and extraterritorial jurisdiction procedures in the state of Texas. Mark?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, during my evaluation, one of the things you'll ask me to do is bring you information on annexation and their procedures. Tonight, I only want to go over a piece of it, and then next time we'll go over another piece so we don't spend too much, and also you're able to grasp it and retain it. Because of something that's coming up is we want to talk about disannexation. And I know that you really want the annexation piece, but because of something that's coming up in next month, I wanted to go over the disannexation because we will be, as long as the paperwork's filed, we will be discussing that next meeting. First, on page 68, it talks about the community size, which are inhabitants, and the ETJ is the area which, with the following distance of city limits, and that's 5,000. I'm sorry. Our population is between 5,000 and 2,499, so our ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, can extend up to 1 mile. There's a bunch of new laws that change that, but it can go up to 1 mile. Before 2023, we always had 1 mile unless we bordered another city in their ETJ. So just keep that in mind. We're 1 mile. Brownsville, because they are 100,000 or more, they go up to 5 miles, which if you remember back years ago, that's why their lines go way north of us. Indian Lake is fewer than 5,000, so they got a half a mile ETJ. That's important to know. Laguna Vista to our, we don't really run into them, to our, I guess it's east, right? Yeah. To our east, they are now over 5,000 inhabitants, so their ETJ would be 1 mile. And that's really all that affects us too close. I want to jump over to the disannexation part, and that is found on page 104 in your packet. Page 104 in your packet, and then, of course, the document we have shows page 38. But 4.0, expansion and reduction of the ETJ. And then right after that, 4.1, no automatic ETJ expansion. The question is, does annexation of property into the city's corporate boundaries automatically expand or extend the city's ETJ? So what that means is, so we annex right across the street. Does that automatically extend our ETJ up to 1 mile outwards? Before 2023, that was a yes. Now that's no, not anymore. The statutory language is confusing, but the state law still provides the following. When a municipality annexes an area, the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the municipality expands with annexation to comprise consistent with section 42021. So we have to go there. And then you can see the other language. Skip down to the bottom of that section of 4.1 where it says, unless residents in the unincorporated portion of the county request annexation into the city's ETJ, The ETJ does not expand following annexation of property into a city. Previously, the ETJ would automatically expand following the annexation of property to our mile. So what that means is if we annex an area, if we want to extend our boundaries to a mile, we have to go to those people out there and say, we want to put you in our ETJ. If they say no, we can't do it. If they say yes, well, then we can, and there's a procedure. So it's very, very different. 4.2, ETJ expansion by landowner request. Can a property be added into the city's ETJ? I just said that, yes. Property which is contiguous to a city's ETJ may be added to the ETJ if the owners request the expansion. Although it's shown in table 2, which is what I referred to at first, which was the 1 mile. Until it reaches 5 miles if you have a population of 100,000. On the next page, 105, it says at the top, note that there are limitations on this expansion simply because the city hits a certain population threshold. Its ETJ may not expand to the statutory limit because the expansion of a city's ETJ cannot include any area of an existing ETJ of another city without agreement of that city. For instance, Brownsville. If we wanted to go south on 1847 towards Brownsville, we can't because our ETJs abut one another. They touch each other. So even if we wanted to go a mile, we couldn't because they already touched. That is one of the issues that we have with Indian Lake is the ETJ boundaries. They came into ours and shouldn't have because that forbids them going in there. And that was not something that changed in 2023. That's been that way for probably since ETJs have been established. So that said, a city's ETJ may be expanded, though annexation, to include an area located in the ETJ of another city if a written agreement between the cities allocates the area to the annexating city. So we could go to them and say, hey, will you release that area? And they can, by ordinance, both cities agree to release it. That's the way we did back in 2012 with all of the area from a little bit west of 803 to almost Bayview. We went to Brownsville and they released that area all to our north, all the way to 510. And they said, Los Redones, we're good neighbors. We release that ETJ to you. We can't claim it until we go there, but Brownsville has agreed to leave it to us. So that was a very good thing that we did it back then. Remember, of course, that the only way an ETJ expands through annexation is through a contemporaneous request of the landowners to annex into the city's ETJ. In other words, we expand, at the same time we've got to ask those, and if they request it, then it expands. Otherwise, as time goes and our cities grows, if we can't convince those people way out there, then we're stuck. I believe at some point in the future, the Texas legislature will relax some of this, but they're very pro property rights, and so that's why this all changed. 4.3, ETJ reduction by city action. Can a city take action to reduce its ETJ? Yes. A city council may reduce a city's ETJ by giving its written consent by ordinance or resolution. So y'all could decide, you know what, we don't want this area in our ETJ. I don't know why we'd do that, but you surely could do that. In fact, the statute reads that if the ETJ...
Can you erase that one from there, John?
Excuse me?
Can you erase that part from there? So we...
No. No, it is still, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
Good. 4.4, ETJ reduction by landowner action. And this is what we're going to run into next month. We've had a resident that's north 1847 and a little bit west of 1847 on Kretz Road. There's an acre. He owns 5 different properties, but it's about an acre in total. He's wanting to request to be removed from the ETJ. So can an ETJ landowner have their property released from the ETJ? Perhaps. Residents of a and landowners of an ETJ may seek to have an area of land released from the city's ETJ through a petition process. The ETJ residents may also seek release through an election. So it's through a paper or an election. The petition and election process are detailed below, and we'll skip that. A city's ETJ may not be reduced without specific council action. So you have to take action. You can't just ignore it. So are any types of ETJ property exempt from release? Yes. Areas are the following are exempted. In other words, you can't ask for a release. Areas within 5 miles of an active military base. We don't have any, so it doesn't apply to us. Areas that were voluntarily annexed into the ETJ of a city in Hays County. We're not near Hays County. The next page on 106, it says areas located in the ETJ of either San Antonio or Houston. We can skip because we're not either one of those. Areas designated as an industrial district. We're not designated as an industrial district, nor is any of our ETJ. Areas subject to a strategic partnership agreement. That's where you go to the landowner and there's been an agreement prior. You can't force them. Basically, none of them apply to us. So how do we do that? 4.4.1 reduction by petition. Who is authorized to file a petition seeking release from an ETJ? A resident of an area in the city's ETJ may file a petition with the city to be released. Likewise, the owner or owners of the majority in value of an area consisting of one or more parcels of a land in a city's ETJ may file a petition. So let's say that Henry and I lived next to each other. We could petition together to be released. Or I could do it on my own for just my property. A parcel of land, while also undefined in Texas statute, typically refers to a defined area of land by reference to specific details such as acreage, a geographic location, survey details, lot and block numbers, which that's the way we deal with, subdivision information or tract names. That's one of the things we're running into this specific one. It's all old farmland, so there's no specific lot and block numbers. So they're having to provide meets and bounds in order to do that. What are the petition requirements? A valid petition must be signed by either one, more than 50% of the registered voters of that area. Not the voters, but the registered voters. Or number 2, a majority of value of the title holders to a land of that area. Like me and Henry, say there's 3 of us. Me and Henry want to petition, the other guy doesn't, so we can petition. We're more of a majority of the 3. A valid signature must be written in the signer's handwriting, contain the signer's printed name, date of birth or voter registration number, residence address, date of signing. Within 80 days of the first signature for the petition is obtained, all signatures must be collected. So in other words, you can't draw this out forever. So if I started on January 1st, I have until June 30th, I guess, that's 180 days, to have my signatures or have to start over. The petition must include a map of the area to be released and described by either meets and bounds, I mentioned that already, or a lot and block number if there is a recorded map or plat. The petition must also comply with Chapter 277 of the Election Code In home rule, we don't have any requirements, but election code is how they determine the signature of the person is valid. And so that process would have to be followed. So what must the city do upon receipt of a petition? When a petition is filed with the city secretary or the person of their designee verifies the signatures. City must notify the residents and landowners of the described area whether or not the petition contains the required number of signatures for release. If the petition indeed contains the required number of signatures, the city is required to immediately release the area of ETJ. In other words, it's not a, well, I don't want to. Do they have to? Is there a deadline for the city to release the area after receiving the petition and it's all good? Yes, the city must take action to release the area either the 45th day after the date the city receives the petition or your next meeting. And we'll always do it on our next meeting. If the city fails to take timely action, the area is released by operation of law. So may a released area be included in the city's ETJ or corporate boundaries? No, not without requesting them to put it back in to include it. So that's the way, if we just go and we're the majority owners, we can do by petition and it happens. The only other one, and it won't take long to finish this, is reduction by election. Who is authorized to request the election seeking release from the ETJ? A resident of the area in the ETJ may request that the city hold an election of the question of whether to reduce an area from the ETJ, maybe a subdivision, maybe a 10 lot subdivision or bigger. One person could request that. How does a resident make a request? By filing a petition. The resident makes a request for an election by filing a petition that includes signatures at least 5% of the registered voter residing in that area. So it can't just be that one person. They have to have at least 5%. What are the petition requirements? The same as stated below. All of the same things that I said, the name and printed name, date of birth, all that has to be there. So I'll skip over that part because it's repetition. Page 108, what must the city do upon receipt of the 5% names? The city secretary verifies them just like before. And if they're verified, then they have to call for an election at the next cycle of elections. There's 4 election times of the year, so it would be, if it's filed today, it would be 90 days or after, so it gives plenty of time for people to know that they're going to vote. And so it would go on the ballot. The city would have to pay for that election. Alternatively, on that page about the middle, the second paragraph where it says, what must the city do upon receipt of petition? The last sentence says, alternatively, instead of holding an election, the city may voluntarily release the area anytime before the date on which an election would have been held. So let's say that we get one and it's a subdivision of 10 homes. And so you got 5% of those, so that'd probably be, what, 2 homes? Or maybe 3, whatever. No, just 1, 2. Yeah, just 1. So there you go. But we went out and surveyed, and if we held an election, we know that 7 of the people are for it. You know it's going to pass. Instead of paying money for an election, you could say, you know what, we're going to release it to you. So it'd be something that we would have to decide. So what happens following an election? We have to hold a meeting. It pass an ordinance releasing that. So same thing, it can't be released back into the boundaries unless they petition to be back into it. We have to update our maps and show that piece not in our ETJ. It might be all around them, but that particular place will show that it's not in there. So that's a quick on our ETJ, but you can keep this book for future, because what we'll talk about is annexation and how it happens. We'll talk a little bit about each meeting so that y'all be gurus on annexation, disannexation, and ETJ.
Thank
Any
you, Mark.
questions?
I think it's kind of odd how, in a situation like that, you have like one little lot, and then eventually as the growth does, it'll kind of look weird, but, I mean, I guess that's what the property owner wants to do, I guess.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, when you're in the ETJ, it really doesn't, I'm not sure why a person would want to do that, because if you're in the ETJ, you're not taxed. So there's no more taxes, your valuations don't change. And state law requires, if we're going to annex your property, we have to be contiguous, and you have to say yes. So even in the ETJ, we cannot do it anymore unless you say yes. So, but it's in the law and people have the rights to do that.
Thank you, Mark, for that descriptive review that we did on the annexation. Any questions or comments from the board? If not, if there's a motion to be made? No motion, no motion.
Just
Oh, it's discussion. My apologies. Any questions? All right, so moving forward, at this time, we'll be acknowledging the city manager's reports. Mark, is there anything you want to point out?
only thing I would like to point out is the Veterans Memorial. We're hoping to get 2 speakers, I think, left to put on and a couple of touch-up. I would like for it to be active in the next day or 2 for the weekend with lots of people here. Maybe some will come by. It's not officially, won't be officially done, but it will be close to where we could utilize it. The landscaping won't be done until about mid-March. We wanted to wait for winter time. We're close enough. There's no reason to plant plants now. They would struggle, especially if we get a good cold weather. So I have seen it at night. It looks pretty impressive. So hope that they'll be able to do that. We're not quite sure whether they will or not, but that's my goal, is the next 2 days, them be able to turn on the lights and have the flags, and at least people push a button. Right now, the only thing that will play is that branch of military song. We won't have the talking part of it, of the history, but we would have the songs to be played.
Well, it's about time. It's about time. We've all been waiting for this moment, so looking forward to it. It's right around the corner.
The other thing I will mention, senior citizens program. I think we mentioned that they did have to go to, instead of all pickup meals, they went to congregate meals. They've been having 30 to 35 participants a day. We've been delivering about 30 homebound meals where people can't get out. Activities, you can see the February calendar is in the packet on page 118. Quite a lot of activities. Having to have some volunteers, so just because of the serving instead of just handing and they go home. So we're continuing to work on that. I think the group wants to participate in the rodeo parade, so that'll be good activity for them to be included in. So still moving forward with that program.
Who's doing the calendar? It's very nice. Jackie,
Jackie.
congratulations. I like it. Thank you.
Looks very festive, hearts and so. Thank you, Mark, for those updates. Is there any questions or comments from the board in regards to any pending stuff listed on the manager's reports? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
I make a motion that we acknowledge the city manager's report.
Motion made? And seconded? All those in favor signify by saying aye and raise your hand. Aye. All those who oppose to the same, motion carries. Acknowledgement of department head reports. Anything anybody wants to add about those department head reports? If not, if there's a motion to be made?
I will
Mark?
mention, if you look at the last 2, you also asked to have information regularly about Community Development Corporation. and the planning and zoning. So the minutes of the last meetings are there, as well as the liaison, what Desi Martinez does. His report that's given to the CDC board a month is there too. So if you hadn't had time to look at it, those couple things that I'll put in each month so that you can at least see that they're meeting and any activities that are happening.
And I saw that, Mark, and thank you very much. I was looking it over and I was seeing these new reports on there, so thank you very much for adding those additional items to the department head reports. With that said, is there any questions from the board, or is there a motion to be made?
I make a motion that we acknowledge the department's report.
Okay, motion made
I'll second.
and seconded by Commissioner Fernandez. All those in favor signify by saying aye, raise your hand. Aye. All those who oppose do the same. Motion carries. The time is now 6:41. We'll meeting adjourned.
A lot of talking. They don't.